Hey, hey. Tobago updates. Na, 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 na. Good morning, Tobago. Na, 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 na. Wake up with Kandace and Denise. Let's go, go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion starts.
Welcome to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates, your source for current affairs in Tobago, Trinidad, and the region. With the perfect conversations to complement your morning routine, I am Kandace Jackson, and let's get started with the news in 90 seconds. Tobago recorded its sixth murder yesterday. Hakeem Thomas from Mount Pleasant was killed in a drive-by shooting. The incident occurred near Terry Brown Supermarket in Mount Pleasant. According to police reports, Thomas was with another man on the road around midday when a car pulled up next to him and someone inside the car began shooting. The other man escaped injury, but Thomas was shot multiple times. He was rushed to the Scarborough General Hospital, but later succumbed to his injuries. Meanwhile, political leader of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Ansel Dennis, cautioned Chief Secretary Fali Augustine against rejecting the input of central government into Tobago's governance. Last week, Augustine warned Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to stay out of Tobago's business. However, Dennis stated that alienating the central government is detrimental to Tobago because major projects are only funded through them. He explained that for developments to happen in Tobago, there must be a good relationship between the THA and central government. And nationally, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley announced the operationalization of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act No. 1 of 2015. At yesterday's post-cabinet media briefing, Rowley committed to doing his best to make sure that the newly proclaimed Procurement Act works for the benefit of everyone in the country. However, he noted that there might be some misunderstanding about how the law works. For example, under the law, Rowley explained that the Office of the Procurement Regulator, or the OPR, does not award or adjudicate contracts unless there are complaints or issues with the contracts. Rowley said one of the most important things at this stage was to ensure that the public service understands how the law will be operationalized. And that was the news in 90 seconds. Well, viewers, we have quite a lot happening in our space. Unfortunately, we have a rise in some of the crime situation. But we're going to be turning now to our first guest for GMT, and that's Mr. Watson Duke, political leader of the PDP. Good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Duke. How are you doing?
Good morning, Kandace Jackson. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad. It's good to be here.
Great to have you. Now, I want to get your views, first of all, on what's been happening with the crime situation in Tobago. What's your take on the recent increase in gun violence here in Tobago?
I think that it's not been taken seriously, not by the Tobago House of Assembly, certainly, because we have not been hearing them speaking about the reduction of crime in a serious and a meaningful way, except to say we should pray. It's almost the very same approach taken by the Commissioner for Police. We should pray. And also the same approach taken by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. We should pray. We know prayer answers all things, but it would be a sad joke for us to think that you could pray and not make an effort to solve things based on the human way. Regardless of how much God loved the children of Israel, they had to stick their swords by their side, hold their shields up, and go out to war. What God would do on the battlefield is another thing, but they must prepare themselves to fight. Certainly, crime throughout Trinidad and Tobago is an employment problem. First of all, crime is an employment problem. Secondly, crime is a community problem. Crime is not a problem for 6 and 9 and 7 and 8 and 4 and 5, whatever. Crime is a problem of the community, and it is an employment problem. And I will elaborate later on, perhaps as you choose to.
All right. And so, I mean, are you saying that one of the things that you would like to see from the THA is to provide more employment, and that's basically your solution towards the crime situation?
Not exactly. I'm saying one, the THA ought to be serious with crime. Having all these meetings and pretending that you have this great crime plan. There can be no crime plan without additional resources, and that's both human and physical resources. And there can be no crime plan without the community involvement. So hearing persons talking about, yeah, they have the crime plan now, they're going to solve it, and be prepared or allow the police to do their job is ridiculous. It's child's play, and it's just a substitute because
All
it's
right.
not serious. What we want to see is that the THA take crime solving as a serious issue. One blow to anybody is too much. Then they have to treat with employment issues, which is causing crime to spiral out of control. I mean, I'm on the ground and I'm with the people, and I can say to you, employment issues are causing crime to spiral out of control. It cannot stop crime, but certainly it can reduce crime. And thirdly, we need to bring the community more involved because everyone who commits a crime is someone's child. They didn't drop from the tree. And we have to go back to the family. It's a whole plan we have. It's not no quick rush through, but it's also predicate. It's also ushers in the fact that if a government cannot protect its own citizen, that government needs not be in power. Any government that cannot protect its own citizen should not be in power and should therefore seek a re-election or to seek the public declare on their status.
All right, Mr. Duke, now I want to turn now from crime to your recent calls for elections. You've been, over the past couple of weeks, you've been very vociferous on that call for fresh elections. And I just want to give you a chance right now just to be able to say why you think that we should be thrown into another round of elections after what we came through in 2020 and 2021.
All right, let me say this straight now. Those who are occupying the THE, they are thieves. They have stolen the election from the Tobago people. Yeah, the Tobago persons or those who would have voted, they would have voted for a particular group of persons who would have spoken of a particular mandate and who was given a particular mandate by the people to do that. Let's take, for example, in the era of crime, some of the things that these thieves would have promised the Tobago people would have been to provide community comfort patrol. The name is really an official name given to a company, but the substance of it remains true, undisturbed. Communities should be patrolled to create comfort and a certain level of serenity in the minds of those who live within the community. They had promised that as part of their 100-day plan. There is nothing of that at all on the table by the THE. No discussion, no update, nothing. Secondly, they would have also promised in the 100-day plan to create what is called the Tobago or Assembly Police, which is likened onto the municipal police that we have in local government corporations in Trinidad. You will understand that Tobago is a local government corporation called by the Tobago House of Assembly. It's simply a second tier of government. They have not done that either. They are not fitting to be in office because they have stolen the election away from the people who would have voted with their democratic will for a particular type of governance. And now they are being told, we don't know about that. We are independent. We are some TP something, I can't remember, TPZ or something like that. All right? That they are now a new party. So people voted for an idea, and you are saying you don't know about that idea. You are new, you're an independent one day, the next day is some TPZ or something like that. Come on, be serious. Governance is serious business. They are thieves, and no thief should be allowed the dignity to govern a country with people where people's lives depend on the type of governance.
Now, Mr. Duke, should the current leadership of the THA, agree to your call for elections and call elections perhaps within by the end of this year? Now, we see the local government elections are coming up, and you express interest of putting a team forward in Port of Spain, specifically for yourself to become mayor of Port of Spain. So if those two elections, if the local government election as well as the THA election are to happen at the same time or approximately like within the same time period, which one would you choose?
Let the moment decide, let the tune decide the dance we make. All I'm saying, I want to be prime minister of that country, and every single move I make is towards that end, becoming the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago. As you know, and we all know, the prime minister assumes responsibility for all of Trinidad and Tobago, the 14 municipal corporations, or I would say 14 regional corporations, and the ward Tobago House or Tobago.
So does it mean that you will still try to become chief secretary within the Tobago space, or would you, concentrate your efforts in Trinidad?
You're asking me to do a dance, and no music is playing at this point in time. When the music begin to play, allow me to do the dance.
Hmm. All right.
So
So
when the election comes, you will see me in operation at that time. But I'm interested in governance on both islands, and I want that to be absolutely clear, both Trinidad and Tobago.
if you are to go forward for the mayor of Port of Spain, will you still put your hat in the ring for chief secretary of the THA?
Again, you're asking me to do a dance. When no music is playing at this time, please allow the music to play. Call the DJ to select. Say, select a DJ, run a tune, and then you will see me in operation. As far as I'm concerned, the PDP desire is to govern both countries based on a mandate from the people. As a political leader and the one who is leading the charge, I am desirous of having governance on both Tobago and Trinidad, whichever comes first. The PDP is desirous of doing so.
Mm.
When the tune begin to play, you will see me move.
What can you tell me about, your campaign efforts at this point in time in Port of Spain? Because you've been quite active, you've been very much on the ground. What's the support like?
First, let me say that I've began campaigning in 2015, and I've never stopped. I've never come off the ground to say relax and enjoy. Not even when we got in 2021 December, not even when we got 50-0 and the PNM stole back one of the seats, did I rest on my laurels. I was busy in Trinidad by January campaigning. And so the Trinidad campaign in Port of Spain is going very well. It's resonating with the people on the ground. Remember, the PDP is a party that is focused on lifting the lower areas of our society and improving the lives of all. And to do that, we have to start at the very foundation, which is the lowest low, those persons who are marginalized and ostracized and categorized as restless and useless. We want to see how we can put those persons back to use and build all the way to the top. Because a foundation is important. And if we are going to be strong as a nation, we have to ensure we create strong families and stronger communities. No one must be left behind. So far, the ground has resonated well with us. I must say that. I'm in the street every day, and so I understand how crime can be solved and how crime would solve. I dare to say now that when I'm elected as prime minister, we will reduce crime because we would include every single one in part of those discussions, not just the rich and highfalutin, not only the wise and those whose vocabulary is verbose, but certainly even those who can't read and spell and add, they play a part in solving crime. And so, yes, Port of Spain is doing well. Yes, we are ready, as ready as the statement goes.
Do you already have a team put together to represent for councillors, the candidates for councillors and so on in Port of Spain?
Yes, we have several of those counselors already identified. We are still leaving room open. Nothing is closed until the names are in, but there is room still for persons who are so interested in running for the 12 electoral districts in Port of Spain. But we have identified certain persons who we are very much pleased with. And I would say it would be difficult for us to choose persons beyond those persons, but we are still open for conversation with the public on the names they would like to see represent them.
When can we expect the PDP to present a slate of candidates for local government elections?
Well, no sooner than would have registered the names, we are not going to do anything before that. Once the names have been properly nominated, according to election and boundaries rules, we are going to have our normal song and dance.
Okay.
Big boo-ha-ha.
Now, you mentioned that crime is high on the list, and we spoke about it at the start of this interview. But we know that there are differences in how you handle situations in Tobago as opposed to Trinidad. Of course, Port of Spain being a different society than Tobago is. What are some of your ideas? What are some of your plans to treat with crime in Port of Spain that may be different from what you think is necessary in Tobago?
Well, crime is like hunger. Crime doesn't know any geographical location. Crime doesn't have any specific demographics. Crime is just crime. It's a thing that alienates society and makes persons uncomfortable. And like Tobago, Trinidad is very much the same where crime is concerned. But I could say to you, I am in the streets almost every day, walking and talking to various people who hold influence over young people. And I could say to you, these young men, who people may refer to as 6 and 9 and 7 and 5, and the numbers keep changing. These young men, they are quite studious. These young men, they have a dream to see their families grow. They have children. They want a lovely life too. They want a picket fence with a big dog that eat chows and go ha ha. They want that for their family. They want women. They want to have a safe home. But there are concerns that no one is taking seriously. One of those concerns, again, is that the government of themselves, they are not treating crime as seriously as they should. They're spending money on vehicles, on guns, and different things. But the very people who are likely to commit crime, how much money is spent on those persons? And don't tell me about the social programs, the hype and the YTEP and all of these programs, the mass program, etc. What people really want is employment.
Hmm.
Employment. People need employment. It has long been toyed about in the public domain that an idle brain is the devil's workshop. Once you are idle, the devil is going to put things into your head. And they're not going to invent any good thing like any spaceship or any battlecraft. They're going to invent trouble, find new ways of circumventing things that were meant to prevent or deter them. Let's employ more of our young people. Let's get them gainfully employed. Enough money is being spent in Port of Spain. Enough money is being spent in Tobago that everyone can be gainfully employed. And when you would have satisfied the employment, whether directly or indirectly through the private sector, then you will now be able to go to the next conversation, the family life. Family life is not being placed on the pedestal it should be placed upon. And I dare say to you that every single person commit a crime. They want to blame the 60, 79, and whosoever. But the families have a role to play. When we have government agencies destroying family life, so much so that mother going out to work and what she's gonna come back with when the man come, $1,000, $800. Daddy going out to work, what is coming back home when the man come? $1,000, $800 thereabout. How do they pay a rent of $3,000? How do they pay a rent of 2005? How do they buy food? How do they send their child to school? How do they encourage that child that is doing good in sporting? How are they going to encourage that child that is brilliant in reading and remembering, etc.? How are they going to deal with these issues. Family life goes more than just saying, I wish you well with your family. It requires providing every single family with the opportunity to spend enough time together so as to break the curses that are sometimes generational. Hence, in Europe right now, there's something called work life balance. Work life balance. And what do I mean by that? It is an idea that says we want the employees to work, but we also want them to enjoy other areas of their lives, such as the social aspect, the mental aspect, and the spiritual aspect of life must also be pursued. So we must allow them reasonable time to pursue those areas of their lives.
Mr. Duke, I want to also bring, as we're actually almost out of time here, and I want to bring back the conversation a little bit to Tobago.
Yes.
We heard some statements recently from Chief Secretary Fali Augustine in regards to the Prime Minister to stay out of Tobago's business and, that sort of thing. Now, what is your take as someone who is hopeful or aspiring to be prime minister, and you're looking on at what's going on both islands, and how the governance is unfolding? What is your take in terms of how the relationship between the chief secretary and the prime minister should be?
Well, first of all, I presume that you're friends. When Fale would have won the elections, he spent 3 hours almost immediately after in the residence of the prime minister talking what? I don't know. It was personal, I believe. All right. All I knew when he came back and looked at me, his eyes were not the same. They were somewhat starry eyes, as if he had seen some god or something like that. So they are friends. And if ever you look at a photo up where the two are together, you'll always see Farley is looking at him with awe and this kind of reverent kind of way at the same time. I don't know what is the side conversation between them. But what I do know, Tobago deserves better representation insofar as a chief secretary saying to the prime minister, stay out of our business. Because Tobago business is Trinidad and Tobago business. And we have to understand that. There is no separation of Tobago, as they oftentimes refer to Tobago government and my government in Tobago. Those are wrong terms and somewhat derogatory. What we need to create is a more harmonious relationship with Trinidad where we are seen for our full attributes and our real value, because there's way more value in Tobago than is known to all and sundry. So to do that, you want to invite meaningful conversations and say to the Prime Minister, look, I hear you, but let us discuss that in private. That would have been the more dignified approach. And certainly what comes out of that would have been an interest to all. But certainly the chief secretary has no right, who representing all of us in Tobago, to speak to the prime minister like that. If he was a minority leader, I understand that. Or if he was just a secretary, I understand that type of behavior. But the chief, no, he has no right. It was totally uncalled for, and I would say reprehensible.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Duke, for speaking with us and giving us your perspectives on some of the things that are happening within our space at this point in time.
Thank you very much.
All right, viewers. Well, that's how we're going to wrap this part of the show. But don't worry, we've got a lot more coming up for you after the break. The energy filled us.